All right, we are up and running and live streaming, and at 7:01 p.m. we'll call this special meeting of the Easton, Reading, and Region 9 Boards of Education to order, and also call the Reading Board of Education to order for this special meeting. I'll ask John to call the Easton Board to order and Todd to call the Region 9 Board to order, please.
We'll call to order the Easton Board of Education at 7:02 p.m.
And I'll call the Region 9 Board of Education to order at 7:02. It looks like all members present, but Karen and Juliet.
And I should have noted also.
Logging on, Todd.
I'm sorry, Maureen.
Karen was trying to get in, but was having trouble. She just texted.
Okay.
And present for the Reading Board are Colleen Pilato, Mike Hoffman, John Riley, and myself. I don't see Stephanie Olton, Chris Hawker, or Heather Whaley at this point. And for the administration, I see Dr. Harrison.
And present for the Easton Board are Randy Hicks, Devin Weibel, Jeff Parker, and myself.
So there's a single item on our special meeting agenda this evening, which is short-term contract authorization for the Director of Finance and Operations. And as members of the board know, due to the lapsing of his contract, we have a vacancy with respect to the Director of Finance and Operations position for the districts, which is a position of critical need with respect to governing the finance and operations of the district. And it is the proposal and recommendation of the superintendent that the boards take steps to approve his recommendation that he be permitted to hire an interim Director of Finance and Operations for a term not to exceed 90 days at a cost not to exceed 25% of the amount budgeted for the fiscal year, or otherwise contract for the provision of necessary services to carry out the duties of the director. And so unless Dr. Harrison wanted to make any initial comments with respect to the situation, I would look for somebody to make this or a similar motion to start discussion on the item.
Chris, I think you covered it. I don't need to add to that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Harrison.
I'll make the motion for Easton.
Thank you, Randy.
Do I have a second in Easton?
Second, Devin.
Thank you, Devin.
Looking for similar action from Reading or Region 9?
I'll move for Region 9. Cheryl.
Cheryl.
Second, Gwen.
Thank you, Gwen. Reading?
So moved, Reading.
Thank you, Mike. I see John waving his hand. Thank you, John. So the motion is on the floor for discussion. Any discussion from any boards or any questions? Mr. D'Agostino.
So the term not to exceed 90 days, obviously that gives some leeway for it not to exceed 90 days. But the question would be if the boards were successful in finding a long-term replacement or obviously hiring a new finance director for the coming year, if we're locked into 90 days. So when we say not to exceed 90 days, will there be some leeway in there that if the boards were to find a long-term replacement, that we would not be bound by an interim for the 90 days?
I think the design is to give Dr. Harrison as much flexibility as possible, and I think he understands and certainly can speak for himself the circumstances with which we find ourselves, and the goal being to transition into a permanent incumbent without our hands being tied to a 90-day window. But certainly Dr. Harrison can address that question also.
Sure. I mean, so Chris, you hit the nail on the head. I think that for me, any potential interim that I would speak to, I would say that just let them know that this would not go longer than 90 days, but that the intention would be to be able to bring in a full-time permanent position or a permanent person into the position as soon as possible. I think that once, I would have a better sense of a timeline, even with this person once the board to move forward with establishing a personnel search committee and laying out the process, because with that comes some level of a timeline that I would be able to give them a sense of. So I wouldn't structure it so that it went, that it would bind us in any way if we found a permanent replacement.
So it would be like an at-will or a per diem kind of arrangement or something like that. We're not
Correct.
gonna do a contract.
Or a board flexible termination,
Yeah,
basically.
that's
Yeah.
fine. Great, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Jeff? Jeff, then Mike.
I think we have an opportunity to at least entertain a discussion with the former Director of Finance, Scott Rice.
I'm not interested in having a discussion about individual personnel tonight. I don't think it's appropriate to hold those conversations in public session.
Well, there's an opportunity to talk with people that could be interested. And
I think that the superintendent is aware of what those possibilities are and can do his diligence, not in a public meeting. I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful, Jeff. I'm just trying to keep personnel matters where they sit to a certain extent. Mike?
Question is similar. I'm wondering if this, if the former director, Mr. Zachary, would be a candidate for this. Is being considered as a candidate for this.
I'm not sure anybody is being considered specifically at the moment, given that we're trying to lay a foundation to give Dr. Harrison the flexibility to find somebody who can take up the mantle of doing the job. So just like I don't want to include or exclude based on what Jeff said, I don't think it's appropriate to include or exclude. Because ultimately, it's the superintendent's discretion as to how the job is handled, and it's a critical need of the district.
Yeah, and I think it's worth noting for everybody, the same way that Dr. Harrison sort of responded to Mike D'Agostino's question about, the point would be that we understand sort of the situation we're in right now, and that we want to make sure that we're able to be as flexible and to make as many sort of smart decisions. I think Dr. Harrison is going to make smart decisions about sort of the right way to move forward. And I think we got to give him that, that autonomy to do that. And I think this is an appropriate level of board saying, go ahead, move forward. And I think Dr. Harrison will make smart decisions about the next steps.
I just want to make it clear that by my question, I was not advocating for that option.
Yep.
Okay.
Understood.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to take this down a negative path, but we're in a bad spot. And I don't know where to put the responsibility of why we're here. Maybe it's incumbent on all the board members. I don't know. But so let me take it a different tack, because that was going to go down a bad road. What are we doing for a search committee? Or are we having a search committee? Like, are we juggling both things at once, gang, or are we doing just this for now?
Right now, there is no established search committee. Right now, it's a function of let's make sure that the critical work is being done by finding somebody to do the critical work in the near term. While we are in the process of a superintendent search, there becomes the question as to when we are filling the position on a permanent basis and with whom and with whom's input. In as much as we're able to find an interim for a period of a couple of months, that might put us in a position where we're having this conversation about a permanent job through a search committee in consultation with the new superintendent, which I think might be appropriate. But right now, there is no formal process underway for a permanent replacement.
I based on the calendar, I think that was laid out by either you, Chris, or some others. That strikes me as we're not starting the search until September 1st.
I'm not sure I would say that necessarily. I think you can start the apparatus of the search and solicit applicants and solicit applications, and then have to the extent that there is a superintendent in place in the fall, have them involved in the input at the back end to be in a position to make that appointment around that.
Okay, so let me say it a different way then. We're gonna have another meeting in a couple of weeks to go through these, to do a search, so to speak, for to initiate the search for a new CFO and director of operations.
To form a personnel search committee?
Sure, right, that's what I'm asking, yeah.
If that's the route we go, right? And I think that, I mean, is there a question in anybody's mind about whether or not we're going to do that?
Is there any question that we are not going to do that?
I think what
I don't
John's
know if
asking is,
my statement was more or less confusing than that.
Okay.
John's asking, is there any scenario in which we are not forming a search committee for the purpose of hiring a director of finance and operations?
Right.
Or is that a presumptive step in this process?
Right. The only way that happens that I can conceive of is if we're saying that the superintendent is going to be the only person who's going to be involved in that hiring. Right. And that hasn't been our process recently for senior executives in senior office.
But I also don't want to get us down a path that goes off of the agenda, which is the short-term authorization. And
Yeah,
well, I
agreed.
certainly acknowledge, Randy, that we're going to have to address it. Go ahead.
Okay, I didn't have any input on the agenda tonight, so I'm not gonna say whether we should or shouldn't, but we're just gonna be back here again in 3 or 4 weeks for another meeting to set up a search committee, it sounds like. And maybe not, maybe we'll do it at the individual meetings or what have you, and we'll nominate folks, but I'm just trying to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But we got a lot of meetings, so
Yeah.
So, okay.
Perhaps
I'm sorry.
Perhaps to Randy's point, rather than have a separate tri-board meeting, just have each board make the same motion at each individual meeting. That way we can add agenda items because we can't do that now. So in the effort to be efficient about it and not lose any time, that would be something that I would advocate.
I would too, Cheryl. And I think that would mean that next Tuesday would be, I think the Region 9 board is meeting
Thursday. And
Thursday.
Well, we have a
So if you have
special
time to
meeting,
put that,
right, Todd, on Thursday?
yeah, but you could add
Special-
it to your agenda ahead of that meeting. So if you did that, then the Easton board is meeting next Tuesday. Reading could do it tonight, and then by next Tuesday night, we would have the personnel search committee formed.
So please take me through a timeline, because what I read in what Chris Parkins sent out earlier today gave me the impression that we were going to be moving with great speed to find an interim so that we could close the books for the past school year, open up the books for the next year, and get the proper forms completed and sent into the state. Now it sounds like there is no sense of urgency about that, and that to me,
The purpose of this meeting tonight is entirely out of urgency,
Yeah.
and to make absolutely clear that Dr. Harrison has the authority to appoint an interim as early as when the motion passes, if
Right.
there's a candidate available. The longer timeline is the question of a permanent incumbent in that role.
Right. I think Mike D'Agostino's been trying to get a word in.
Yeah, Mike.
So, I think based upon the limitations of the agenda tonight, we're kind of roaming a little bit outside of the lines here, which we should probably be conscious of. I do feel that we should probably, we've been graced by the Connecticut legislature that Zoom meetings can continue until April 2022, something like that. So we do have some flexibility to continue having these virtual gatherings, which everybody seems to love and encourage public participation. But I guess what I'm saying is, it seems as though we're going to need to get our paperwork in order, our job posting, kind of get that updated, clear it up, have it ready to go. And we're going to need to have another virtual gathering to kind of direct how to move forward. And I'm not going to be so bold as to say search committee, no search committee. Everyone knows where I stand on that. But what I do feel is that to the point of Randy and Jeff and others, that gathering those applications, having an open date until filled on the position is, I certainly feel, is to our advantage. And then as we move forward, the personnel search committees and the boards in their entirety can make the decision whether we have a parallel approach to hiring these positions, whether we wait until the super is filled first and move, but at least if we're collecting those applications and we have that discussion, we can kind of move forward together rather than, it's going to be challenging, I believe, to do everything all at once, but I do feel that we can have everything in place to be able to move forward as fast as we can.
Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, motion originated in Easton. We can call the question in Easton, John.
Thank you, Chris. Randy?
Yes.
Thank you, Jeff.
No.
Devin?
Yes.
I vote yes. The motion passes 3-1.
Thank you. Then it was into Region 9. Todd?
Sure. We'll call the question in Region 9. After I get off of mute. Cheryl,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
didn't see Juliet join.
You too.
Gwen? Oh, sorry, Juliet. Yes, go ahead. Yes, thank you. Gwen,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Mary Lee,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. That passes 8-0 in Region 9.
Thank you, Todd. Calling the question in Reading. Colleen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
I vote yes. Motion carries 4-0 in Reading. That brings us to item 3 on the agenda, adjournment. Look for a motion to adjourn from any of the 3 boards.
Made the motion ready.
John for Reading. There's a second in Reading. Mike?
Second, Reading.
Thank you.
Easton, motion to adjourn.
Thank you,
Easton,
Devin.
Devin.
And anyone else in? Thank you, Randy. We'll any objection in Easton? We're adjourned at 7:19 p.m.
All right, Region 9, can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mike, second. Is that Karen?
Karen,
For the second?
The second for Easton was who?
It
Randy.
was Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then repeat, Region 9, Mike D'Agostino, and then who?
Karen,
Thank you.
should we go ahead and adjourn, Chris?
Yep. Any objection in Reading? Seeing none. I don't see any objection in Region 9. The